So thank you very much. As you can see in the following minutes, I will speak about the semantic database called ELTEdata, developed here at the Department of Digital Humanities of the University ELTE. ELTEdata aims to organize, first of all, the sources of prosopographical, bibliographical, and other historical research groups into a semantic data network. ELTEdata, based on the Wikibase software, follows Wikidata structure, which means that every semantic statement can be described in the form of property value pairs. At the present time, we have three main projects and more than 14,000 items in our database. Most of these items became uploaded manually or semi-automatically using the tool Quick Statements. The first and most representative collection contains the biographical and bibliographical data of the forthcoming lexicon edited by the Humanism in East Central Europe, HECE research group. The fellow scholars prepare an encyclopedia of humanistic authors and their works from the historical kingdom of Hungary in the period between 1420 and 1620. The second collection, called The Circulation of Knowledge, is a digital source edition and prosopography at the same time, based on different texts. First of all, correspondence, travelogue, university textbooks, and so on, from the period between 1770 and 1830. So from a period when sciences were gradually organized into a new system. It is important to know that by means of entity linking, it is possible to combine the prosopography's namespace with the digitalized texts. Later, I will quote some example for this method. And finally, the third but still not complete collection called ELTEdata is also a prosopography of Hungarian university teachers from the late 19th century and the period between the two world wars, edited by the research group of prosopography and family history at the Faculty of Social Sciences here at ELTE. So all of these prosopographical and bibliographical collections are good sources to analyze both geographical and social mobility and the development of social networks based on correspondence or any other kinds of relationships. And now a few words about the structure of these semantic statements in ELTEdata. First of all, ELTEdata has a user-friendly interface. The data structure of Wikibase enables us to enrich our database in many ways. Users can add values to the statements, as you can see in this screenshot. For instance, beside the start time and end time of the study abroad of this person, I can add further data, such as the name of the patron of this peregrination, also the person who patronized the study abroad, and the teachers of the student. We can add bibliographical data as references below the statements, and we can use a special property to collect the secondary literature this way. The relations with other databases is also quite essential, and this can be realized by means of external identifiers. So users can add these identifiers to persons or bibliographical records or literary works alike. And yes, almost every item and property have a Wikidata ID in our database. Monographs and edited volumes can be bound to, for example, wordcat.org, as you can see. or any other library databases. As I mentioned before, entity linking connects semantic entities to the text fragments of the digitalized source edition. We use the semi-automatic name entity linking method in order to identify the personal and geographical names in the text and add namespace identifiers to them. As the attached screenshot shows on this slide, besides the names, we can link, for instance, concept entities to certain parts of the text, which bind the actual passage to such a concept as learned society, technology, human resources, historicity, and so on. And these concepts are the part of the collection circulation of knowledge. So as you can see from the statements of item learned society, it is also possible to create a hierarchy between the entities by means of a subclass of property. And now a few words about the hierarchy of these items. When ordering a hierarchy, we try to follow, first of all, the model of Wikidata. The subclass of property is definitely useful when users run certain SPARQL queries. For instance, when I would like to select every natural scientist from my namespace, I must take into account that natural scientist as a collective noun usually does not appear as an occupation. But thanks to the hierarchy, I can run a query for every natural scientist because each occupation, such as biologist or physicist, is a subclass of natural scientist. To create a hierarchy is therefore quite useful in our database. Not only organize the entities and organize the namespace, but it can be very practical when I run certain queries on my data set, as I said. So it is possible to carry out, just as you can hear, complex searches using a SPARQL query. SPARQL, a semantic query language for databases. The simplest queries collect data fulfilling certain conditions. Yes, in a default view, the results of the queries appear in a form of interrelated tables. However, there are other more spatial and more graphic forms of visualization. For instance, several kinds of charts are available. First of all, for quantitative data, chronological data can be represented on timeline. A map proves to be very useful to open spatial dimensions, while the graphs reveal social networks and other relations between diverse objects of the database. And yes, users can download the queries results in different file formats, which makes easier a semi-automatic data import. For instance, we can upload our data in CSV format in other relational databases to run a new visualization. And of course, we can get a tiny URL and the SPARQL endpoint of our query, but it is also possible to embed the result, as you can see. And hereinafter, I will focus, first of all, on the query's visualization. So every human settlement, region, or institution has a coordinate location in our database, which makes possible geographical visualizations. This way, among others, users can illustrate the popularity of certain educational institutions in diverse periods. For example, based on the data of the HECE research group, so based on the data set of this humanist lexicon, it is quite obvious that the University of Wittenberg was the most popular amongst these authors in the early modern period. By means of filters, I can specify the code of my query based on the dates of birth or, for example, the religious distribution. Yes, and similarly, I can visualize the data regarding higher education from the collection ELTEdata. And when you see this, it will quite remarkable that these future professors from the late 19th century attended primarily University ELTE in Budapest. So you can get a very remarkable image about the education preferences from diverse periods. Geographical visualizations can reveal hidden or less evident aspects of a large data set. On the following slide, you can see cities and villages where the humanists of the lexicon HECE ecclesiastical or secular positions held. And I write here. I wrote here the most important of these positions, such as pastor, preacher, schoolmaster, rector. So you can think on these positions first of all. Yes, and I paid also special attention to the confessional distribution, as you can see. Therefore, I compare the results regarding the Calvinists and the Lutherans, these main confessions of the Protestantism in this period. And this way, the visualization reveals the confessional dominances in the different part of the historical Hungary. It is quite obvious at first sight that the eastern regions, such as the cities of Partium, today Romania, also the northern part of Transylvania, mostly Calvinists worked in this area, and pastors and schoolmasters, just as in the cities of the most eastern part of the historical kingdom of Hungary, today part of the Ukraine, of the western Ukraine. In Upper Hungary, however, the part of Slovakia today, where the Lutherans more active. It is quite interesting, just as in some cities of Transylvania, where first of all Germans lived, yes, such as the settlements around Brasov, also part of Romania today. And it is also evident that in the central region of Hungary, which was under Ottoman occupation in this period, the Calvinist influence was dominant. So you can imagine that this confession could build a strong influence in this occupied region in the 16th century. Yes, and if users zoom in on the map, they can see that in the vast majority of cases, the work locations are cities and their agglomerations. And these cities are cultural, religious, and political centers, just as the already mentioned Brasov in Transylvania, or in Prešov in Upper Hungary, today Slovakia. So every work locations of these pastors and preachers were situated around these big cultural and confessional and political centers of the historical kingdom of Hungary. Yes, and further important cities are, for example, Debrecen or Sárospatak, where very important Calvinist situations were located at the same time. Yes. And by means of geographical visualization, we can represent also someone's travels or residences. You can see both the visualizations and the SPARQL query for it. So this way we can get a comprehensive image of the spatial dimensions of a person's life events. The visited cities and countries demonstrate very well someone's geographical mobility. And this screenshot, the following screenshot, shows, for example, the rise of the Hungarian poet István Budai Parménius, also from the 16th century, who traveled at first to Oxford, where he became involved in Humphrey Gilbert's expedition to North America. So this was an expedition. They reached Newfoundland in August 1583. And after continuing the voyage southwards, one of the ships ran aground in the bad weather at Sable Island, and this poet, Budai Parménius, died there. He was, by the way, the first Hungarian traveler in America. And yes, we can also make a very good, I think, a very good visualizations to his travels. As I mentioned earlier, there are several kinds of charts for the visualizations of quantitative data. I show you an example. And yes, this bubble chart is a result of a query collecting the disciplines from project ELTEdata. It is in Hungarian. I'm sorry for this, but I can translate this. So medicine, pharmacy, humanities, and legal sciences were among the most popular scientific disciplines in the project ELTEdata. Although these future university teachers were, in the vast majority of cases, physicians and studied medicine at the universities. First of all, at the University ELTE. Yes, and. Of course, I can visualize this query in a form of a bar chart, or I can visualize a quite large data set. For instance, when I am curious which is the most often quoted bibliographical record, which are the most often quoted bibliographical records in a collection, I can run this query. And yes, when we see the data of the HECE lexicon, we can get a list, the most often quoted secondary literature, the most often quoted bibliographical records. And we can see that the first of them is a classic monograph written by János Horváth, famous Hungarian literary historian, in the spirit of the Reformation. This is the most often quoted work, but monographs and other edited volumes are between these records. So these records are most often quoted than, for example, a scholarly article.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
1 minute.
Okay. Yes, I show you another visualization at the end of my presentation. This is a line chart about the ages of persons in ELTEdata. So it shows very well that which were the most common ages of the persons. So it is combined date of birth from the date of birth and date of death, and out of this data, the query make this chart. And Finally, some words about the graphs as a popular form of visualization for networks. Yes, this is a network of the acquaintances of the humanists of the lexicon HECE, and as you can see, or as you zoom in on the query, you can see which authors were in the center of this social network and which authors are on the period, on the periphery. Sorry, on the periphery of the social networks. So you can get a very well image about the authors who had the strongest social network. And at the very end of my presentation,
No. Sorry, that's a very, very brutally ungrateful roll of the chair. 5 seconds.
Okay. On the notebook, you can run a similar visualization of social networks. This is a work in progress work, so I try to use this platform to visualize the social network of the humanist authors. Yes, this is the end of my presentation.
Terrible.
Thank you.